In the heart of a desolate wasteland rises the demon capital, a fortress shaped like a sinister grin. Its halls serve as a grim monument to anyone who dared challenge its master. And on a lonely throne, a mighty being reflects on the century that's gone by since his last decent fight. This is Belmont, the Demon King, who's gotten bored of crushing lame heroes for 1,000 years. He thinks back to the fire wielder from 100 years ago, who was, ironically, snuffed out by a freezing flame. 10 years after that, a water hero didn't stand a chance, getting overwhelmed by a tide of boiling rage. The wind hero's attempt 70 years back was over in a flash, literally blown away by a murky hurricane. Even the earth hero from 50 years ago was just swallowed whole by the very ground he controlled. Ever since then, his throne room has been dead silent, with no new challengers brave enough to show up. But the long wait is finally over, as a determined new hero arrives to take him on. The hero bursts onto the scene, effortlessly taking out one of the Demon King's top commanders. Belmont is completely unfazed, taunting her for daring to challenge a master of all elemental magic. But she just scoffs at his empty threats, ready to see just how long his cockiness will last in a real fight. With the trash talk over, the hero launches herself into the air, unleashing the first strike of their destined battle. Their epic showdown rages on for 7 days and 7 nights, a true clash of titans. In the end, though, the hero collapses to the floor, looking totally overwhelmed and beaten. But just as Belmont is about to declare victory, he's suddenly caught in a mysterious force that starts draining his power. He struggles against this bizarre, unknown elemental magic, totally clueless about what it is. Re-energized, the hero reveals her ace in the hole, a one-of-a-kind technique known as the cultivation of yin and yang. And just like that, the Demon King, who ruled undefeated for a century, was finally taken down by the legendary hero, Arya. Fast forward 50 years, and the once-feared demon capital is now a hot tourist spot. A tour guide is proudly showing off the fortress, which has been rebranded as the Demon's Capital Museum. The new generation is buzzing with excitement, totally hyped to see the legendary figures from the past. An Imperial Knight playfully reminds her young audience that history is for looking, not for touching. Once inside, the kids are totally starstruck, finally seeing the setting of their favorite epic story in real life. And right before them stands the main attraction, the petrified body of the once mighty Demon King. The tour guide reveals this isn't just some statue. The actual Demon King, sealed in stone for all time. This permanent exhibit, she explains, is all thanks to the one and only hero, Arya. Arya's own statue totally inspires the kids. Her legend has become the cool new goal for all the hero wannabes. As the tour continues, a lone maid is quietly tidying up the silent halls of history. Suddenly, the tour guide remembers another fun fact for her group. To prove her point, she suddenly grabs the horn of the unsuspecting maid. The guide explains that thanks to the hero's mercy, the demon race was allowed to live alongside humans. As the poor maid panics, the knight uses her as a living display to point out their features. With a casual shove, the guide sends the demon maid tumbling to the floor. She just keeps on with her lecture, explaining that their magic was sealed away, making them totally harmless. Completely ignoring the humiliated maid, she leads the tour group on, but a look of pure hatred follows her every step. The sound of children's laughter rings out as the maid quietly picks herself up. But don't be fooled, she isn't broken, she's just biding her time until tonight. Little does she know, a nearby knight seems to feel that something is amiss. As night descends, the Demon Capital's museum is set to become the backdrop for a clandestine uprising. A lone demon maid stands waiting in the moonlit hall, her chance for vengeance finally within reach. She unveils her secret weapon, a powerful elixir known as the saliva of a magical dragon. 50 long years of humiliation drove her to gather this incredible power-boosting potion. Gazing at her petrified master, she vows that today is the day he will be brought back. With just one shot at this, she gets ready to drink the forbidden concoction. She downs the entire vial, welcoming the exhilarating surge of power she hasn't felt in ages. A radiant aura explodes from her body, magic coursing through her veins for the first time in decades. Ancient demonic incantations spill from her lips as her sealed powers are completely unleashed. She unleashes a furious torrent of lightning, shattering the hall's silence in a spectacular show of force. She channels every ounce of her newly regained power into one single, devastating blast. A bolt of lightning smashes right into the Demon King's petrified form, and the spell's recoil hurls her clear across the massive throne room. The impact is so strong it cracks the solid marble floor beneath her. Drained but full of hope, she forces herself to look up, desperate to see if her gamble paid off. A single, glowing crack appears on the stone, a sure sign of success. The statue then explodes into 1,000 pieces, freeing the one who was trapped inside. Tears of pure joy stream down her face as she celebrates her master's long-awaited comeback. As the dust begins to settle, a new figure starts to take shape within the blinding light. Her celebration comes to a screeching halt when she sees not a powerful king, but a little kid standing in his place. The reborn Demon King slowly wakes up, feeling like he just woke up from a really, really long nap. His loyal maid can only stare in disbelief, barely managing to ask if it's actually him. He confirms that it's him with all the authority of a king, but he has absolutely no memory of the woman standing in front of him. She's immediately convinced That powerful aura and those piercing eyes could belong to no one else. Overcome with joy, she practically tackles him in a tear-filled hug and introduces herself as Lehi. The Demon King is completely baffled by this sudden, emotional reunion. But then, a sudden flashback shows him a very different, much younger Lehi from his own memories. He shoves her back, his confusion rapidly shifting to deep suspicion. Belmont demands to know who this imposter really is, pointing out that a few major things just don't add up. She frantically explains that 50 years without magic has changed the demon race in more ways than one. For 50 years, she had to disguise herself and take on all sorts of odd jobs, all to get ready for this very moment. Every single hardship was worth it just to see the day her master would finally be brought back to life. It finally clicks for Belmont. Her appearance changed because all of her magic had been sealed away. His mind flashes back to the hero, Arya, and the strange elemental magic she used to imprison him in the first place. Lehi proudly declares that their days of being pushed around are over now that he's back to lead them. But the Demon King crushes her hopes with a single, devastating word: I refuse. He casually brushes off her plea, far more interested in finding some new clothes. Lehi is absolutely floored, wondering what could possibly be more important than restoring their entire race. After sitting on the throne for 1,000 years, Belmont confesses he's totally over the whole Demon King gig and that peace actually sounds awesome. It dawns on Lehi that they were so blown away by his reputation, they completely forgot that, by their standards, the guy is basically just a teenager. Scrambling for a solution, Lehi pleads with her master to spill the details on the hero's sealing magic. Belmont digs deep into his memory, struggling to recall the name of that bizarre technique. Lehi leans in closer, totally captivated and hanging on his every word. He finally blurts out that it was some obscure art called the Cultivation of Yin and Yang, which involved a very personal exchange of life force. The maid's brain just blue screens, her face exploding into a brilliant shade of crimson. After rebooting, she works up the nerve to timidly ask what the experience was actually like. He just describes it as this weird, painful pressure that took over his whole body, something he couldn't even put into words. It hits Lehi that even the supposedly all-powerful Demon King was completely baffled by such a freaky technique. But their awkward chat is cut short by an unwanted guest hiding in the shadows. Lehi's eyes go wide with terror when she recognizes the Imperial Knight from earlier. The knight makes her grand entrance, mocking the maid for having the audacity to bring back the legendary Demon King. In a total panic, Lehi shoves her master behind her, screaming for him to get out of there. But the knight is way too quick, unleashing a massive gust of wind that sends them both tumbling. Lehi takes the full brunt of the attack, using her own body as a shield for Belmont. For the first time in centuries, the Demon King actually looks worried about someone else. Even though she's hurt, the loyal maid insists he run while she holds the knight off. The knight just scoffs at their little moment, bragging that her wind magic is all she needs to take them down. Belmont just smirks, completely unimpressed by her little light show and ready to demonstrate what real power feels like. He raises his hand, about to cast a spell that'll shut her up for good. And then, it hits him. After 50 years of being a garden gnome, he's totally forgotten how to use his magic. Seeing her chance, the knight launches a devastating blade of wind, dead set on finishing them both off. The attack tears through the throne room, blasting Lehi backward. She screams out her master's name, absolutely terrified for him. Belmont staggers back to his feet, grumbling about how pathetic his new human body is. The knight's suspicions are confirmed. The legendary Demon King is now totally powerless. With a smug grin plastered on her face, she declares that she's definitely getting a huge promotion for this. Lehi, meanwhile, is tearfully apologizing, blaming herself for not hiding the dragon's saliva better. But Belmont's mind is stuck on something else entirely, asking if demons have always been treated like dirt. Lehi admits that even though a peace treaty was signed, it was basically just a piece of paper with empty promises. The reality is, a lot of humans still hate their kind and refuse to even acknowledge their existence. Belmont just smirks, realizing this so-called peace was a joke from the start. He shoots a look over at Arya's statue, muttering that even the legendary hero couldn't pull off a real utopia. Lehi jumps to protect him, throwing up a barrier of human magic she'd learned on the sly. The knight just laughs at the pathetic little spell, promising to haul them both off to the authorities. Belmont knows she's just wasting her energy and decides his magical retirement is officially over. He frantically tries to call upon his old elemental powers, but gets absolutely nothing. Then, all of a sudden, a strange new energy starts crackling to life inside his powerless body. His eyes go wide as he recognizes the mysterious magic. It's the exact same kind Arya used to seal him away. With a new strategy clicking into place, he calls for his ever-faithful maid, Belmont, as he grabs Lehi, intending to use her as a channel for this newfound power. To Lehi's absolute shock, Belmont kicks off the power transfer with a sudden, deeply intimate gesture. A massive wave of life force begins surging between them, leaving the loyal maid utterly speechless at her master's desperate maneuver. Radiant energy flows from Lehi, reawakening the dormant power sealed deep within the Demon King. A dazzling magic circle explodes to life beneath their feet, supercharging the ancient ritual, and with the transfer complete, A tearful Lehi confirms his plan was a success. Belmont feels the familiar magic he wielded for 50 long years roaring back to life inside him. He finally identifies the power, the legendary cultivation of yin and yang, while the knight scoffs from above, ready to crush their last-ditch effort. However, her blade of wind is effortlessly shattered by an immense blast of demonic energy. Flashing a menacing glare, Belmont prepares to turn the knight into a pile of smoldering ash. He unleashes a devastating flood of fiery energy that completely engulfs the hall, from which the knight emerges, battered and stunned by this unfamiliar power. Belmont reveals that this is the hero's own magic, telling her she's incredibly lucky she isn't already dead. She completely loses her cool, screaming about how a demon could possibly wield Arya's sacred technique, but the Demon King calmly corrects her. He states that demons are not what she's been led to believe, a simple declaration that leaves the knight utterly speechless and confused. Overwhelmed by the incredible power and the shocking revelation, the once proud knight collapses in total defeat. With the fight now over, Belmont turns his attention to his loyal and extremely flustered Maid. He declares his new mission is to free the entire demon race from their magical seals, and his first command is to find a place with plenty of women. Lehi's mind immediately jumps to the worst possible conclusion, leaving her a blushing, stammering mess. He quickly clarifies that his grand plan is to use the hero's own technique to restore the demon race to its former glory. Their journey leads them to Ra's city, ironically named after the very hero who defeated him. This bustling human metropolis, once his own capital, is now a place where anything can be had for the right price. Lehi guides him directly to a district known for catering to every kind of earthly desire. The moment they step inside, Belmont is immediately mobbed by a swarm of enthusiastic hostesses. They offer him a special essence tea, but the young Demon King is completely unfazed as a snake woman tries her best to charm him with suggestive whispers. Even an adorable slime girl's desperate plea for attention can't seem to crack his stone-cold composure. Lehi desperately tries to convince herself this is all for a noble cause, just as a confident fox girl hostess asks the Demon King to make his choice. To his loyal maid's complete astonishment, Belmont coolly turns down the offer, and Lehi breathes a huge sigh of relief, proud of her master's seemingly virtuous character. But her hopes are instantly crushed when he boldly declares that he wants every single one of them. His outrageous request sends the hostesses into an absolute frenzy of excitement, and as he's led away, a fuming Lehi mutters about how predictable men are. Belmont's true motive, however, is finally revealed. It's all part of a strategic plan to counter elemental magic. Inside their private room, one of the women playfully reaches up to remove his hood, and his demonic horns are suddenly revealed, stunning the entire room into a shocked silence. The hostesses freeze right where they stand, their warm, welcoming smiles vanishing in an instant. Belmont is completely oblivious, wondering why the warm welcome has suddenly gone arctic. All he can manage is a dumbfounded, huh? As the women gawk at his demonic traits, their sweet smiles instantly vanishing. In their place are looks of pure, raw hatred. An abrupt explosion blasts Belmont and Lehi straight out onto the street as one of the fox girls sneers. She's disgusted to find out their high-rolling customer was nothing more than some worthless demon. Their sweet act morphs into pure rage as they violently boot the two from their place. Lehi chews out her master, who just casually explains that he's used to servants taking his clothes off for him. Just then, a mysterious demon woman shows up, laughing at the young king's cluelessness before dropping a harsh reality check. Around here, demons are the lowest of the low, forced to scrape by on the streets. The stranger coldly declares that their suffering is all thanks to the Demon King who failed. Lehi jumps to his defense, but the woman just scoffs at her 50 years of wasted loyalty. She then directs her contempt toward Belmont, daring the quiet boy to throw down. But his intense stare freezes her on the spot, an aura that's both familiar and absolutely terrifying, paralyzing her. Belmont calmly asks which demons actually get to live a normal life in this city. The woman is horrified, feeling an overwhelming compulsion to obey his every word. She stutters that the only ones who are safe are students at the Hero Academy, and their entrance exam is coming up soon. Belmont instantly declares they're going, shocking both women with his audacious plan. The demon woman immediately protests. She insists there's no way a powerless demon could ever pass the hero's exam, but Belmont just tells her not to sweat the mistakes of the past. He vows to fix the screw-ups of his former self personally. 2 days later, an academy official shuts them down flat. He says they don't meet the qualifications. Their grand scheme hits a brick wall, leaving them completely stunned as the academy buzzes with other applicants. It's a sharp contrast to their own crushing disappointment. Apparently, demons need a sponsorship from a noble just to apply. It's a rule basically designed to keep their kind out. While Lehi tries to figure out a new angle, Belmont spirals into a bizarre fit of self-loathing. The once mighty king is reduced to calling himself useless garbage and a total embarrassment to his clan. But Lehi knows exactly what this is, identifying it as the legendary state of D, a mental breakdown unique to demon kings. It's a state of extreme self-deprecation triggered whenever they break a promise to themselves. She remembers a past king who went into this state just for taking 1 second longer than he promised to beat a hero. Heck, she even remembers one who had a meltdown over a simple toothache. Lehi knows that while he's in this trance, Her master operates purely on his most basic instincts, but when she tries to help, she's met with a powerful, reflexive shove from the Demon King. The recoil from the push sends Belmont himself flying backwards across the pavement. Lehi can only watch in horror as her master gets launched by his own out-of-control power. She scrambles to his side, but their little scene has already attracted some unwanted attention. The disturbance came from a headstrong young noblewoman getting an earful from her attendant. This is Alice Roseth, and she clearly has zero interest in listening to her handler. Her attendant insists she's far too important to be taking the exam alongside a bunch of commoners. Meanwhile, that unexpected jolt seems to have knocked Belmont right out of his depressive spiral. Alice's attendant, Roy Suma, is demanding that the eldest young miss head home this instant, but Alice just explodes in a fiery rage. She warned him to never speak that name again, then unleashed a breathtaking spell, the Reign of the Phoenix, but in a shocking twist, her mighty attack just fizzled out, harmlessly swirling around the stone-faced attendant. Roy just calmly waved it off, admitting her elemental magic was pretty good for a kid, but ultimately useless against him. He bragged that she was way out of her league, calling himself the general of elegant demon guidance. Apparently, his technique let him feel out and dodge any magical attack perfectly. With almost lazy grace, he batted away every single one of her elemental blasts. But of course, one of those deflected shots went flying wild, heading straight for the totally oblivious Demon King and his maid. Lehi's heart sank as she realized their little squabble had caught the Demon King's attention. Her eyes went wide with sheer panic as a rogue fireball rocketed right at them. Meanwhile, the attendant smugly called the match over, casually brushing off his lady's pointless struggle. He even threatened to drag her home for another one of his elegant lessons in obedience. But just then, Belmont stepped in and took the full force of the deflected blast, not even flinching. The rogue magic exploded with enough power to rip the street to shreds, and from the smoking crater, Belmont walked out without a scratch, wondering aloud where that blast even came from. Lehi scrambled to his side, completely stunned that he'd just taken a hit for her. All the young noble, Alice, could do was gawk in disbelief. She was floored by this mysterious boy. Belmont shot the two of them a freezing glare, warning them to keep innocent people out of their little spats. Alice, completely clueless, started demanding an apology, not realizing Belmont's attention had already shifted to her attendant. Lehi instantly saw that her master's usual gloom had flipped a switch into a full-blown, violent rage. The young noble screamed at the mysterious boy, demanding that he stop. Belmont glared right back, irritated by another interruption. But then, as he looked at the girl, his anger suddenly wavered. A hint of confusion crossed his face. For a second, he saw a ghostly image of the hero, Arya. The resemblance was just uncanny. Alice was absolutely infuriated by his intense gaze and snapped, "What are you staring at?" She charged forward, dead set on prying her attendant from his grip. But the instant her hand made contact with his shoulder, a bizarre energy crackled between them. A jolt of strange magic shot through her, leaving the noble girl completely stunned and flustered. Alice was totally overwhelmed, flooded by a powerful and completely foreign sensation. It hit Belmont like a lightning bolt. The cultivation of yin and yang had just been triggered. He felt the ancient magic flare to life in his hand, spiraling completely out of his control. A wild surge of vital essence was about to overwhelm them both. Their simple touch had become a channel for a massive, unstable transfer of power. But just in time, Lehi threw herself between them, bravely taking the brunt of the chaotic energy herself. As always, the loyal maid's only thought was for her master's safety. Belmont quickly reassured her, explaining that they'd accidentally triggered the hero's magic. That's when Lehi urgently revealed the girl's true identity. She was a direct descendant of the hero, Arya. Shaking off the shock, Alice Roseth demanded to know just who these mysterious people were. Belmont took a step forward, closing the gap between him and the hero's descendant. He looked up at the young noble, his face a complete mystery as he took her measure. Now face to face, Alice couldn't help but notice a strange sense of familiarity between them, despite how different they were. Then, the Demon King made a really weird gesture. He's trying to match her face to memories that are 50 years old, but a quick scan of his thoughts tells him she's not the hero he once knew. Visibly flustered, the noblewoman grabs him and demands to know why he's acting so weird. Thinking on her feet, Lehi whips up a crazy excuse, claiming demons just have a special way of recognizing folks. Alice, surprisingly, lets it go, but reminds them that they're still banned from taking the academy exam. Feeling defeated, Belmont and Lehi try to make a quick and awkward exit, but Alice stops them dead in their tracks, demanding to know how he managed to use a forbidden spell. It dawns on Alice that the boy's move wasn't just a lucky shot. He had expertly pinpointed a weakness in her attendant's supposedly flawless defense. Just as Belmont gets ready to spill the beans, Lehi starts to freak out, begging him not to reveal what they really are. But he ignores her, cryptically explaining that Alice herself has a one-of-a-kind, non-elemental power. Lehi's eyes go wide with terror, absolutely convinced her master is about to blow his cover as the Demon King. But instead, he declares that she's the descendant of a charming demon. It's a lie so ridiculous, it's actually kind of genius. Lehi lets out a huge sigh of relief, impressed by her master's ability to think on his feet. The noble girl, on the other hand, is totally confused, asking what in the world a charming demon is even supposed to be. Alice then starts listing off some, let's just say, spicy details about that particular type of demon, which forces a red-faced Belmont to cut her off. Switching topics, she concedes that even though they're a couple of weirdos, the two of them really did help her out. She announces that her family raised her to always repay a kindness, hinting that a reward is in order for their help. Their destination? The Holy Belmont Great Hero Academy, which, ironically, is named after the very Demon King they're supposed to be fighting. An examiner gets ready to start the test, assuming everyone who's coming has already arrived, but Belmont and Lehi burst in at the last second, dead set on taking the exam. The official just scoffs at them, reminding the two demons that they can't get in without a letter of recommendation from a noble. In response, Belmont coolly holds out a piece of paper and asks if this will do the trick. The man's smug look completely disappears when he recognizes the signature from the legendary Roseth family. Then, as if on cue, Alice herself shows up, announcing that she also plans to take the exam. The examiner is completely starstruck as he realizes he's standing in the presence of the hero's direct descendant. His whole attitude changes in an instant, and the flustered official practically begs them to come inside. And just like that, the Demon King, his maid, and the hero's heir are all standing together, ready to take on the academy. The crowd instantly starts whispering, totally shocked to see the noble Alice hanging around with a couple of demons. Lehi can feel the hostility in the air and knows their problems are just getting started. Their entrance is cut short by a confident-looking cat girl from the Beast clan. Her name is N, and she looks absolutely thrilled to see her rival, Alice, is also here for the exam. Alice, however, is clearly not happy about it, muttering that the most annoying person imaginable has just shown up. N playfully calls them childhood friends, but Alice shoots that down, insisting it's more of a cursed connection. The cat girl's focus then shifts over to Belmont and Lehi, and she mockingly asks if they're Alice's new servants. Alice immediately shuts her down, warning her to keep her hands off the charming demon. But that warning only seems to pique N's curiosity even more. So instead of backing off, N instantly grabs Belmont, totally fascinated by the idea of a male charming demon. Lehi is completely baffled, wondering why the hero's magic didn't go off the moment the cat girl touched her master. Meanwhile, N gets uncomfortably close, boldly proclaiming she wants to make the Demon King her new pet, which is when a fuming Alice shoves them apart, yelling at them to get a room already. The cat girl just laughs it off, teasing Alice for getting so worked up over a simple joke. But before anyone can even blink, a new challenger appears, an elf girl who gets right up in Belmont's personal space for a good sniff. The cat girl fumes in the background, annoyed that someone else beat her to the punch, while Alice's jaw hits the floor as she recognizes the newcomer. And she does not look thrilled about it. The elf, Rostana, completely ignores the drama, tenderly cupping the Demon King's face in her hands. She leans in, her eyes sparkling with curiosity, and asks if he's really one of those charming demons. Belmont plays along coyly, explaining that the male variety is a little bit special, causing a flustered Alice to try and break up the party. She shouts at the elf to back off, but Rostana ignores her, calling Belmont practice material and taunting Alice about her family's influence. The cat girl smirks, reminding Alice about some mysterious great hero agreement from the previous year. Alice furiously fires back that her plans are her own and have absolutely nothing to do with her family. The three hero descendants are locked in a tense face-off, their rivalry practically crackling in the air, as Belmont asks Lehi for some intel. She reveals they're the heirs of the three great heroes who fought him, which puzzles the Demon King, since he only remembers one hero who actually mattered, the legendary Arya. Lehi explains that Arya's team had 4 members, but her incredible fame created a bitter and long-lasting grudge. Suddenly, a brilliant pillar of light erupts from the academy, signaling the start of the exam, and the 3 rivals immediately pause their bickering. Their attention is now completely fixed on the challenge ahead as a powerful figure teleports onto the scene. Surrounded by crackling energy in a complex magic circle, this is Edward the Examiner, and he's here to welcome the new hopefuls. The crowd buzzes with excitement, instantly recognizing his high-level spatial magic, which makes Lehi grow anxious. He realizes their sealed powers are no match for this kind of magic, but Belmont calmly reassures her. He reveals their 2 cultivation sessions had an unexpected side effect, declaring that a portion of his elemental magic has already reawakened. A glowing sigil forms on his hand, crackling with raw, untamed energy, and the Demon King is ready to test the limits of his partially restored abilities. Lehi shields her eyes, completely stunned by the blinding radiance of his power. With tears of joy, she realizes her lord's true demonic power has finally returned. But his grand display of power is just a pathetic little spark, much to Lee's dismay, and he admits his control is minimal. He can barely sustain the magic outside his body, and the unstable energy quickly fizzles out. This proves just how weak his current state truly is, and Lehi despairs, knowing this pathetic power level won't be enough to pass the exam. The Demon King looks on, completely oblivious to his maid's sudden surge of determination. Without warning, she grabs his arm, pulling him close with a dead serious expression, and then pulls him into a tight embrace. This leaves the young Demon King utterly bewildered, and he demands to know what in the world she's doing. Completely flustered by the sudden closeness, she pulls out another vial, which he recognizes as the same elixir she used for his revival. Lehi explains this potent but temporary booster is his only shot at passing the exam, but Belmont just casually tosses the precious elixir aside, leaving her totally speechless. He straight up turns down the power-up, and his maid is just completely bewildered. As he strolls off, the Demon King starts to explain this sudden change of heart, flashing a smug little grin. He announces that it just wouldn't be right to pass the exam by cheating. Lehi's jaw practically hits the floor. She's absolutely floored by his newfound sense of honor. She furiously reminds him that the entire fate of their people is riding on this one test. Belmont pauses for a moment, thinking over her words before turning to face her with a dead serious expression. His loyal maid looks up, caught completely off guard by the sudden fire in his eyes. He declares that even without his former strength, the Demon Clan is second to no one. Placing a reassuring hand on her, he promises he'll pass this exam his own way. Lehi is totally won over, admitting she was wrong to ever doubt her master's determination. She carefully tucks the elixir away, reaffirming her faith in the one and only true Demon King. But just then, a mysterious hand suddenly snatches the vial right out of its hiding spot. Lehi is stunned, wondering why her lord would go back on his noble speech. Belmont just shrugs his shoulders, just as confused by this sudden twist. A magical portal tears open right in the wall and reveals the real thief. The loyal maid can only let out a scream as the forbidden elixir is snatched right from under her nose. Her shriek gets the Demon King's attention, and he spins around to face the intruder. The examiner, a guy named Edward, steps right through the portal, and he does not look happy. He immediately spots the contraband, wondering aloud who'd be dumb enough to try and cheat on his watch. Without a second thought, Edward disqualifies the culprit, ordering her name to be struck from the list. A powerful spell immediately traps Lehi, who cries out as the magic tightens its grip on her. She's then dragged into a swirling vortex, desperately screaming for her master to save her. All Belmont can do is watch in horror, yelling his loyal maid's name as she disappears completely. The examiner calmly turns back, telling the crowd he simply got rid of a shady demon. He scoffs at the shame of a demon trying to cheat their way into this prestigious exam. Edward then smugly declares, it's no wonder they're called the Clan of Disappointment. The whole crowd erupts in laughter, and even the descendants of heroes join in on the taunting. Belmont stays completely silent, his face hidden by shadows as he boils with a cold, hard rage. The examiner then turns on him, daring the young demon to say something and get booted with his friend. With a look of pure ice, Belmont swears he's going to make the examiner apologize for what he said. Edward just scoffs at the demon's nerve, asking what's so wrong with punishing a cheater. The Demon King clarifies that it's not about the cheating, it's about the insult to his loyal maid. The examiner just doubles down, calling Belmont a disgrace, who's only here because of Alice. Then, completely ignoring the demon, Edward channels his magic to officially kick off the exam. In a brilliant flash of light, a powerful teleportation spell zaps all the candidates away. They all reappear in a bizarre new place, a massive cliff that's shaped just like a dragon's wing. The hopefuls are totally stunned, realizing they're at the legendary Dragon Wings cliff right behind the academy. And laid out before them is the very first trial, a long, narrow bridge that leads straight to the main academy building. Edward explains that the test is simple. All they have to do is just walk across the bridge to get to the other side. He then gestures toward a massive bridge made of pure light, the sole pathway spanning the perilous chasm. The examiner lays it out plain and simple. Just get to the academy on the other side. But nobody's buying it, the candidates are on edge. Suddenly, a magical enchantment flares to life, confirming their suspicions this is definitely a trap. That's when Edward finally reveals the catch. Only the first 100 people to make it across in the next 30 minutes will pass. Then, with a grand, theatrical gesture, he officially kicks off the first trial. It's a complete free-for-all as every single wannabe hero stampedes onto the glowing walkway. But as they sprint forward, a weird sensation coming from the bridge puts everyone on high alert. Belmont, however, just calmly eyes the smooth surface, instantly picking up on the hidden danger. All of a sudden, the solid ground vanishes beneath them, and their feet start sinking right into the light itself. The entire bridge morphs into a sticky, goopy mess, trapping the frantic candidates right where they stand. One overly optimistic candidate shouts that crossing will be a piece of cake with a bit of focus, but the examiner just smirks, revealing the bridge is actually made of slime that ensnares anyone with weak magical control. And just like that, dozens of hopefuls find themselves sinking helplessly into the gooey trap. Anyone who can't properly control their elemental power is stuck tight, their progress grinding to a halt. This even includes the hero's own descendant, Alice, who's whining and struggling against the sticky surface. Meanwhile, her rival, N, just casually strolls by without a single problem, throwing some serious shade at Alice's terrible elemental control. The catgirl then zips ahead, leaving a fuming Alice to deal with it on her own. Alice realizes, completely frustrated, that all the other hero descendants are crossing this thing like it's nothing. The examiner then turns his smug gaze dying to see how that notorious demon is holding up. And he's not disappointed. Belmont is submerged nearly to his eyes and looks like he's finding the whole situation completely unbearable. The examiner cracks a smile, positive the demon's weak powers will keep him stuck there for good. But then Belmont blows everyone's minds by freestyle swimming through the slime with perfect form. Edward is absolutely floored, realizing the demon's level of control is better than some of the Academy's own teachers. But refusing to be impressed, the examiner decides it's time to crank up the difficulty. The other candidates aren't so lucky, though. They can barely move an inch in the sticky trap. Out of nowhere, the entire bridge lurches to life, swelling into a massive, terrifying wave of pure slime. The whole world gets flipped upside down as the candidates are tossed into the air by this bizarre assault. Slimy tendrils then erupt from the bridge, snatching a screaming student right out of the air. Even our Demon King is caught off guard by this sudden, chaotic twist. That's when the examiner reveals his final trick. The entire bridge is made of living, hungry slimes. Edward smirks, explaining that this giant slime is a tough challenge even for seasoned heroes. He then points out a teleportation array down below. If you fail to cross, you're out of the academy for good. But Anne is completely unfazed by the slime's grip, openly mocking its slow-motion attack. She just scoffs at its pathetic hold, deciding it's finally her turn to play. The giant slime can only look on in shock as the catgirl gets ready for her counterattack. With a furious beast claw, she effortlessly tears right through the gooey monster. Anne lands with a smug grin, taunting that size alone isn't enough to impress her. Meanwhile, the elf Rastana steps calmly onto the chaotic bridge. She faces down the menacing slime tendrils without a single trace of fear. Closing her eyes, Rastana gets ready to handle the threat in her own elegant style. A vortex of water magic begins to swirl around her, proving her incredible control. The bewildered slimes can only wonder what in the world is about to hit them. Their confusion quickly boils into rage, but her magic flash freezes them solid on the spot. Rastana just scoffs at them like they're a minor inconvenience, unleashing a deceptively gentle wave of immense power. With a single, graceful move, she shatters the entire slime army into a million frozen shards. But one stray piece of slime goes flying, managing to escape her perfect attack. The rogue glob hurtles toward a terrified student who can only scream for her life. Stepping in to save the day, Alice's hand crackles with the blazing power of a phoenix. She unleashes a torrent of fire, incinerating the slimy threat in a heartbeat. The hero's descendant once again proves her worth, saving a fellow candidate without even breaking a sweat. The rescued student stammers out her thanks, completely starstruck by Alice's power. Alice just coolly brushes her off, claiming the slime was simply getting in her way. But her flustered expression gives her away as she fumes about this ridiculously easy test. The examiner smirks, impressed by the hero's powerful aura and absolutely certain the demon brat is about to fail miserably. He watches the slimes, confident that Belmont's pathetic little power is no match for them. His smug expression completely shatters as he witnesses something that should be totally impossible. The Demon King is just sitting on top of a giant slime, surrounded by a horde of smaller slimes that are practically worshipping him. He calmly pats the creature, soothing it with a few gentle words in its own language. Edward is absolutely floored, realizing the boy is speaking the long-extinct slime language. He knows taming a beast like that requires an incredible amount of demonic power, something Belmont shouldn't possibly have. Belmont throws a smug look back at him, a glowing sigil visible on his tongue. The examiner instantly recognizes the advanced magic, the legendary blessing of speech. Edward realizes the demon brat somehow used his minuscule power reserves to cast an expert-level spell. Unwilling to be shown up, the examiner decides it's time to crank up the difficulty. He pulls out a mysterious-looking vial, ready to juice up the slimes with a nasty surprise. The once-tamed slime monster lets out a furious roar, its eyes glowing with a newfound rage. Dark, spiky tendrils erupt from the beast, lashing out straight at the Demon King. Belmont is sent flying by the sudden, vicious betrayal of his new friend. He lands with expert precision, bracing himself for the next round of attacks. The entire bridge seems to writhe to life, now a sea of dark tendrils ready to strike at any moment. The slime monster transforms into a shadowy nightmare, its friendly demeanor completely gone. Belmont realizes this sudden power-up is anything but natural. Somebody is cheating. The enraged beast unleashes a deadly flurry of shadowy tendrils, aiming to finish him off for good. Trapped on the bridge, the Demon King knows there's no way to dodge the attack. The examiner gloats from the sidelines, excited to finally see the trash demon get disqualified. But a sudden blast of phoenix fire intercepts the deadly assault. Belmont braces for impact, only to be suddenly yanked out of harm's way. His unexpected savior is none other than the hero's descendant, Alice. She checks on the slime-covered demon, a rare look of actual concern on her face. The Demon King is completely stunned, wondering why his rival would even bother to save him. Alice starts stammering, caught completely off guard by his direct question. She quickly denies any concern, claiming the slime was just in her line of fire. The examiner watches all of this, annoyed that Alice's interference is complicating his little scheme. Deciding to retrieve his booster, he reaches through a portal toward the slime. But the powered-up slime monster has other ideas. A wicked grin spreads across its face as it rises up, ready for a fight. It sucks in every last slime on the bridge, growing into a colossal beast. Both Belmont and Alice are totally floored by the creature's sudden transformation. The examiner's scheme blows up in his face as he completely loses control of the monster. He realizes in sheer terror that his dimensional magic is totally useless against this mutated freak. Left with no other option, Alice unleashes her full power, determined to finish this thing on her own. But her mighty flames just sputter out, doing absolutely nothing to the monster's shadowy body. Alice is in complete shock, realizing the slime has somehow become totally immune to her fire magic. That's when Belmont reveals the creature was fed a forbidden potion, the blood of a corrupted python. The hero's heir can only gawk, having never heard of such a dark concoction. He explains it's a booster that brings a creature back to just 1% of its full potential. Alice is absolutely horrified. She processes that this terrifying beast is only using a tiny fraction of its real strength. The Demon King adds that slimes are a special case. They can fuse together and combine their power. This monster is the result of countless slimes merging into a single, horrifying being. Another barrage of fiery blasts turns out to be completely useless against the fused monstrosity. The slime monster emerges from the smoke, stretching its wicked grin wider than ever. Alice is fuming that her elemental magic is worthless, just like Belmont said it would be. She snaps at him, demanding a real plan instead of his smug running commentary. Belmont calmly reveals that he does, in fact, have a strategy, and she's the key to pulling it off. The impatient hero's descendant tells him to spit it out already before they both end up as Monster Chow. Without saying another word, he reaches out and yanks the noble girl close, pulling her into a sudden, intimate embrace. His eyes are glowing with a strange power. The hero's descendant is left utterly speechless by his ridiculously bold move. He kicks off his master plan with a surprise kiss, shocking the young noble into total silence. The Demon King announces he's activating the legendary cultivation of yin and yang. Alice is completely short-circuiting, her mind totally fried from the sudden transfer of power. A massive surge of vital energy flows between the Demon King and the hero's heir. He begins to channel the forbidden magic, getting ready to unleash its full potential. Even the slime monster is just staring, baffled by their bizarre team-up tactic. But then Belmont realizes with a jolt the ancient magic isn't working. The hero's descendant, on the other hand, is feeling a whole different kind of energy. Pure, unadulterated rage. Completely fed up with his methods, Alice decides it's time he got a taste of her power. Her fist makes contact, setting off an explosion that rocks the entire bridge. As he's lying in the crater she just made, she furiously lays into him for his outrageous stunt. The dazed Demon King can only conclude that the noble girl is way scarier than any monster. But despite her fury, Alice puts the mission first and orders him to go get reinforcements. He staggers to his feet, coldly informing her she'll be digested by the monster long before he could ever get back. Livid at his brutal honesty, she tries to kick him right back down, telling him to just die already. But this time he catches her foot, asking why she's so hellbent on fighting this thing alone. She declares with absolute conviction that a hero's duty is to protect the people. Her words leave him stunned, reminding him of the very hero who sealed him away and making him wonder if the people includes him. But their moment is shattered when the shadowy beast lunges forward to attack. The hero's descendant is caught completely off guard by the sudden assault. She reacts in a split second, summoning a massive magical shield to block the incoming tendrils, but her defense immediately starts to crack. Her current strength is nowhere near enough to halt the creature. Then, with a horrifying crunch, the beast's shadowy tentacle shatters her barrier, but Belmont shoves her out of the way, taking the full brunt of the monster's devastating blow himself. The dark tendril detonates on impact, flooding the entire bridge with sinister energy as Belmont uses his own body to shield the hero's descendant from the blast that hurls them through the air. Stunned by the sheer force of the blast, Alice coughs and sputters amidst the thick smoke. Furious, she demands to know why he'd throw himself in front of the attack, insisting this is no time for him to be playing the hero. Belmont throws her own ideals back at her, questioning if a hero's duty really includes protecting demons. His deep question strikes a nerve, leaving the hero's heir utterly speechless, and he follows it up with a shocking declaration. He proclaims that he will pass this test and become a hero in his own right, leaving Alice to gape at him, completely dumbfounded by the Demon King's unbelievable new ambition. A beet-red Alice shatters the tense atmosphere, demanding to know just how long he plans on lying on top of her. Meanwhile, the shadowy slime creature towers above them, getting ready for another attack, and Alice starts to panic, realizing there's no cover left on the bridge. But Belmont calmly says they don't need to stop it at all, a suggestion that leaves the hero's heir completely bewildered. He grabs her hand, telling her to hush and concentrate on his bizarre plan, and she feels a weird tingling as all of her magical energy gets siphoned directly into her palm. Belmont cracks a smirk, commenting that while her raw talent is impressive, her control over it is still pretty sloppy. The noble girl can only stare back in disbelief, demanding to know what in the world he just did to her. He explains his plan is to use all the power she's been wasting in a much more effective way, adding that, even without his full strength, Demon King boasts he has more than enough juice to clinch the victory, confidently proclaiming that as the Demon King, he will always find a path to triumph. An incredible surge of demonic power explodes from his body, leaving Alice completely awestruck by his true nature as the shadowy slime monster lets out a roar. Totally unfazed by his flashy power-up, it lunges forward, aiming to flatten the duo with its enormous, shadowy body. Belmont unleashes a devastating move, the Infernal Demon Gun, channeling every last bit of his power into a single hand. His demonic energy blasts right through the monster like a massive spear of pure rage, and the creature is completely obliterated, its shadowy form vaporizing into thin air. He shields Alice from the aftershock, landing with perfect grace in the middle of the wreckage. To his surprise, Belmont realizes the intense fight has actually restored a fraction of his former powers, and now that the monster is gone, the way to the academy is finally open. Over at the finish line, the other candidates are waiting anxiously, assuming the test must be over by now. Meanwhile, the examiner is in a full-blown panic, absolutely terrified of what the powerful Razeth family will do when they find out Alice has vanished. But a student's shout cuts through the tense air as a figure appears through the smoke, and Edward's face instantly lights up with a glimmer of hope, hardly daring to believe what he's seeing. He's ecstatic that Alice is safe, but he's even more thrilled that the demon brat is probably toast. His jaw hits the floor as Belmont himself strolls out of the chaos, carrying the hero's descendant in his arms. The examiner's momentary relief evaporates, replaced by pure, unadulterated fury, while Belmont coolly announces their success, much to the chagrin of the other exhausted nobles. The crowd erupts into a flurry of whispers, completely shocked to see the heir of the hero being carried by a demon. Belmont grinds his teeth, realizing that even after a display of overwhelming strength, in their eyes, he's still nothing more than an outcast. Meanwhile, the hero's heir is practically fuming in his arms, swearing revenge, while Belmont just tries to get through the ordeal. Edward offers fake congratulations to the successful candidates, officially ending the first trial, but his smile morphs into a sneer as he focuses on the kid from the demon clan. The examiner immediately disqualifies Belmont right on the spot, accusing him of cheating his way through the entire test. Our Demon King is left completely floored by the utterly baseless accusation. The crowd instantly falls for the lie, convinced a demon could never pass legitimately. As Belmont tries to argue his case, his rival suddenly steps forward to intervene. Alice stands her ground, boldly informing the examiner that Belmont was with her the entire time. She grudgingly admits that without his help, she would have failed, which proves he couldn't have cheated. The Demon King is caught completely off guard by her fierce and unexpected defense, but Edward just dismisses her testimony, reminding her of the Demon Clan's dark past. He lectures her about the former Demon King, who used his race's innate magic to wage war and conquest. The examiner gives all the credit to her grandmother, Arya, for sealing that king and crippling the entire demon race's power. His eyes narrow as he gets ready to deliver his final, damning point. Edward declares that without their main power source, a demon like Belmont could only have passed by cheating. Completely ignoring Alice, he starts casting a spell to punish the cheater himself. A huge surge of energy crackles around him as he gathers his magic, the examiner's eyes glowing a stark white. He's all set to unleash his judgment on the young demon, but Belmont interrupts his big speech with a perfectly timed punch to the face. The crowd can only gawk in stunned silence as the examiner hits the floor. Belmont stands over the downed official, calling out his entire argument as nothing more than pure speculation. The examiner clutches his jaw, failing in disbelief that a student actually dared to hit him. The Demon King's eyes glow with a menacing light, warning him that the only reason he's still breathing is because Belmont wants to get into the academy. From the crowd, Ristana recognizes his incredible control, despite his seemingly weak demonic abilities. She realizes with a jolt of shock that he can even cancel another person's spell right in the middle of being cast. The bruised examiner staggers to his feet, enraged that a mere demon brat would dare to defy him, but a new voice slices through the tension, amused by the interesting student they have found. A mysterious woman steps out into the light, declaring that she will personally entertain the young demon. The entire crowd gasps when they realize this powerful newcomer is the academy's own principal. The principal completely ignores the drama, warmly greeting Alice and commenting on how much she has grown up. The bruised examiner begs the principal to let him handle his own mess, but the powerful woman cuts him short, addressing him simply as Edward. She coolly informs the stammering official that she will be taking over from here. The principal then turns her full, intimidating attention to the young demon, Belmont, radiating a terrifying aura. Grand Magister Karen Lynn gets right to the point. Did you cheat? Belmont feels the overwhelming pressure from her presence, realizing this is the legendary youngest principal in the Academy's history. Even Alice is shocked by the sheer force of the Grand Magister's magic. Completely unfazed, the Demon King looks her dead in the eye and flatly denies the accusation. The principal accepts his answer with a cryptic smile, motioning for him to follow her. In a brilliant flash of light, she teleports them to a grand new location, a mysterious hall. The teleportation spell dumps them out unceremoniously, leaving Alice totally spun around. She gawks at the strange, imposing chamber, trying to figure out where the principal just zapped them. They've landed in a massive council hall, surrounded by shadowy figures watching their every move. The silent council members stare down from the stands, their faces completely cloaked in darkness. The principal greets them with a confident smirk, welcoming them to the very seat of power. She introduces herself as Karen Lin, the head of the academy and its highest council. And to prove their worth, she announces they now have to face another individual test. Both Belmont and Alice are completely blindsided by this sudden challenge. Alice immediately objects, demanding to know why they're being tested again when they already passed fair and square. The principal calmly explains the simple reason. They both broke the academy's rules. The principal lays it out. The academy's only purpose is to train heroes to defeat the Demon King. She then brings up an unwritten rule that bans demons and limits powerful families to just one student per generation. Alice grits her teeth, absolutely furious that she's being trapped by a convenient loophole. But Belmont calls her bluff, asking how an unspoken rule can even be considered a rule in the first place. He confidently declares that the only rule that matters is the one in writing. Pass the test, you get in. Simple. His bold defiance sends a wave of whispers through the shadowy council. A frantic Alice tries to shut him up, positive he's about to get them both thrown out on their ears. The Demon King just shrugs her off, saying he's only speaking the truth. Looking amused, the principal concedes his point and promises their special test will be simple. Her first question, however, is a loaded one. Why do they want to join the academy? Alice proudly announces she wants to be a hero who protects people, just like her grandmother, the legendary Arya. The principal then turns to Belmont, asking about his own grand ambition. Belmont boldly states his goal is to end the discrimination against the demon race. His declaration sends the shadowy council into a furious uproar, but the principal just chuckles, completely unfazed by their outrage. She finds their conflicting goals, one a hero, the other a savior for demons, incredibly entertaining. The principal admits she's now quite intrigued to see what kind of future the two of them will create. With a simple flick of her finger, she begins their special test. Two glowing rings of light suddenly materialize, hovering right above their heads. She reveals these are the legendary rings of demolition, forged by the hero Arya herself. The principal explains that only the more powerful of the two will be chosen by the ring and earn the title of hero. Belmont immediately asks about the fate of the one who fails the ring's judgment. With chilling indifference, she declares the loser will be stripped of their power and eliminated on the spot. Alice staggers back in shock, realizing this special test is actually a duel to the death. Belmont scoffs at her ignorance, questioning how she could possibly know so little about her own grandmother's creations. The would-be hero fumes, blaming some mysterious family member for keeping her in the dark about her own family's history. Karen Lin breaks down the brutal terms. Survival is the only way to pass. She then offers them one last chance to back out, a smug challenge gleaming in her eyes. Alice's confidence falters, the immense pressure to be chosen suddenly crushing her resolve. Seeing the fear in her eyes, Belmont couldn't resist a little jab, asking if the so-called future hero was already thinking about throwing in the towel. A totally flustered Alice snapped back, insisting she would never give up, especially not to some pint-sized demon. The principal just smirked, noting their fighting spirit before officially kicking off the deadly trial. With grim determination, the two rivals prepared to slide on the legendary rings. They each slipped the artifact onto their finger, sealing their fate in this sudden death showdown. Now facing each other in the grand hall, the stage was set for their final judgment. But when nothing happened, Alice was completely baffled, naively wondering if maybe they had already passed. Belmont, on the other hand, sensed a dark power stirring. Realizing something was emerging from the ring, a torrent of sinister purple energy exploded from the artifacts, flooding the chamber with pure dread. The shadowy power swirled together into two massive, menacing forms that loomed right over them. Without any warning, the dark energy lanced down, plunging directly into both of their bodies. As the dark energy invaded Belmont's body, his expression remained completely calm. A spectral judge materialized, declaring it would weigh the sins and desires of his soul. Belmont just scoffed, totally unimpressed by some mirroring demon trying to intimidate him. The judge roared with fury, enraged by the young demon's incredible arrogance, but its rage faltered the moment it sensed something impossibly ancient within the boy's soul. A terrifying, shadowy figure loomed behind the judge, the true form of the Demon King. The spectral judge trembled in absolute terror as the real Demon King asked if it was going to approve him or not. With a simple command, Belmont dismissed the dark energy, having easily passed his internal trial. The principal smiled, impressed that the legendary ring of demolition had approved of him. But across the hall, Alice was crying out in agony, still trapped in a brutal battle with her own inner demon. The ring was preying on Alice's deepest fears, playing cruel words about her family's disappointment. Voices from her past mocked her magical talent and tried to pressure her into a marriage she never wanted. The spectral judge twisted itself into the form of her greatest insecurity, the voice of a disapproving parent. The principal watched with amusement, finding the hero's heir's internal struggle rather entertaining. Overwhelmed, Alice collapsed, power completely drained by the relentless assault on her mind. Her inner demon manifested as a giant spectral warrior, ready to land the final blow. But Belmont intervened, firing a small blast of demonic energy to save his rival. The spectral warrior easily shrugged off the pathetic little attack, completely unfazed. His blast didn't even leave a scratch, proving just how weak his current powers really were. The principal smirked, telling the Demon King his meager strength was useless here. The principal then launched into a lecture on the world's unspoken rules, from vengeance to discrimination. Alice struggled against the dark energy, weakly insisting she didn't need his help. Belmont just ignored the principal, questioning the entire premise of the ring's judgment. He realized that failing to become a hero meant facing a far darker fate. Without another word, the Demon King grabbed the struggling hero's hair. He caught the spectral warrior's blade with his bare hand, stopping the final blow right in its tracks. Belmont stood his ground, shielding Alice from the full force of her inner demon. Both the principal and the heir to the hero's legacy were left completely stunned by his intervention. He just scoffs at the whole hero concept, calling it a total burden someone else forces on you. The Demon King declares that the only thing that matters is protecting the girl right in front of him. Alice is left completely stunned, her heart pounding at his out-of-the-blue confession. Tears start to well up in her eyes as she calls him an idiot, totally overwhelmed by his willingness to sacrifice himself. He starts channeling a familiar ancient power, a golden sigil blazing to life on his chest. The Demon King definitely recognizes this feeling. It's the legendary cultivation of yin and yang. By merging their power, he prepares to unleash that forbidden technique all over again. A blinding tidal wave of energy erupts from them, completely vaporizing the spectral warrior. The entire council hall is left glowing in the aftermath of their incredible power. Even the principal looks impressed, clapping with genuine delight at the amazing show. With a satisfied smirk, she declares that they've both passed the deadly test. Exhausted but victorious, the Demon King holds up the hero's heir, their rivalry now morphing into something else entirely. Belmont lets out a huge sigh of relief, totally wiped out but triumphant after clearing that brutal test. But the tender moment is completely shattered when Alice wakes up and realizes she's still in his arms. Her furious scream echoes across the academy grounds, demanding that he let her go that instant. The next day, the opening ceremony officially kicks off their new school life. Belmont finds Lehi, who assures him she's fine after getting booted from the exam. The loyal Maid immediately senses the tense atmosphere, realizing the academy is already swarming with rivals, but Belmont points out a far more critical detail she's overlooked: his brand new school uniform. Lehi just stares with comical seriousness, wondering what grand, strategic point her lord is trying to make. With a dramatic flourish, the Demon King points her attention to a new arrival. A flashy bunny girl is striking a pose, demanding everyone check her out instead. At the same time, a mysterious hooded figure spots their target, pointing with grim purpose. The newcomer is a short-haired elf girl, her eyes laser-focused on someone in the crowd. It hits Belmont that the academy is loaded with potential partners for his yin and yang cultivation. He concludes this must be the only way to revive the demon clan, much to Lei's utter dismay. To help him on his noble mission, Lehi hands him a mysterious book from the clan elders. He's shocked to discover it's an incredibly thorough guide to interspecies romance. A blushing, Lehi explains the book is meant to assist him with his cultivation. Genuinely touched by her sacrifice, the Demon King vows to study hard for the future of his clan. Lehi promises to provide her full support from the shadows as he begins his critically important research. With fresh resolve, the Demon King is ready to take on his first day at the Hero Academy. Belmont strides through the campus, vowing not to let Lei's efforts be in vain. He finds his classroom, ready to do absolutely anything for the sake of the Demon Clan. He steels his resolve, prepared to make any sacrifice necessary for his clan's revival. With unwavering determination, he pushes open the door to his new life. But his epic entrance is met by a classroom absolutely jam-packed with ridiculously muscular dudes. The brawny students are thrilled, already arguing over who gets to welcome the new demon first. He instantly slams the door shut as the horrifying realization hits him. The academy's classes are completely gender-segregated. A teacher confirms his worst fears, saying boys and girls only mix during special events. The Demon King's brain just short-circuits, completely mortified by his absolute failure to do even the most basic research. The teacher moves on, calling on the new class representative, Lester Field, to give a speech. A smug-looking student in a pristine white uniform gets up to address the class. This is Lester, son of an earl, and he makes it a point for everyone to remember his prestigious title. The classroom erupts in whispers, awestruck by his family's wealth and their powerful summoning magic. Lester soaks in the attention, internally scoffing at the commoners who are so impressed by his status. After his brief and pompous speech, the teacher dismisses the new class representative back to his seat. Walking away, he scoffs at his classmates, believing Alice is the only one worthy of being his rival. But then his thoughts drift to the entrance exam, and his gaze locks onto Belmont. He sees with rage, furious that Alice was tainted by some lowlife from the Demon Clan. With a sinister smirk, the arrogant noble vows to get his revenge. Belmont senses the hostility but is completely unimpressed by his new rival's glare. Belmont just wonders why this pompous noble is giving him the evil eye. He remembers Lehi's advice to try and smile to get along with his classmates. Taking his loyal maid's words to heart, he decides to give it a shot. His face twitches, struggling to form an expression he hasn't used in centuries. In a moment like this, the Demon King knows exactly what to do. He unleashes a smile that is 100% pure, unfiltered demonic contempt. The noble heir recoils in absolute terror from the horrifying grin. Lester is completely baffled, wondering what in the world kind of smile that was. The friendly gesture is immediately misinterpreted as a chilling death threat. As tensions escalate inside, the Academy day continues peacefully outside. The other nobles immediately start sucking up to Lester, hoping to get on his good side. But the arrogant heir has no time for their pathetic attempts at flattery. He's still fuming, convinced he needs to make an example out of these commoners. Deciding enough is enough, Lester resolves to put the demon brat in his place. The class watches in anticipation as the noble heir storms toward his target. He gets right in Belmont's face, demanding an explanation for his disrespect. The Demon King is completely baffled, having absolutely no idea what set the noble off. Lester finally reveals his true motive, furiously questioning Belmont's connection to Lady Alice. Still forcing his terrifying smile, Belmont casually dismisses her as just an acquaintance. Taking this as a declaration of war, Lester powers up, ready to settle this with a duel. His eyes blaze with fury as he challenges the demon to a fight. A massive surge of summoning magic erupts, filling the entire classroom. Belmont watches the dramatic display with a flicker of recognition in his eyes. The energy forms a terrifying chimera, a monstrous beast made of shadow and rage. Lester proudly boasts about his family's legendary summoning technique. The class is blown away, hailing the young noble as a once-in-a-generation genius, but the Demon King just looks confused, as if he's seen this supposedly terrifying beast before. The arrogant noble warns Belmont to stay away from Alice or face his wrath. Ignoring the threat completely, Belmont casually walks up and pets the giant monster. Lester can only scream in disbelief, as his ultimate weapon acts like a common house pet. But Lester's cool facade shatters as he panics, admitting he has no real control over the beast. The wild chimera lets out a roar, about to unleash its raw, untamed power all over the classroom. Our Demon King remembers that the chimera is actually a legendary, shape-shifting beast from his own clan. This ancient creature is so powerful it used to smash city walls with a single punch. Back in the Great War, just 5 of these bad boys were enough to take out an army of thousands. This noble's dumb move just brought a walking nuke into a classroom full of kids. Totally unfazed, Belmont calmly reaches out and tells the furious beast there's no need to be scared. He talks to it like they're old buddies, feeling its pain from being trapped by some second-rate magic. The chimera is just completely stunned, its rage just melts away, replaced by total confusion. The whole class is in awe as this demon kid somehow tames the untamable, leaving Lester completely dumbfounded. Lester figures it's time to get his dignity back by sending this thing back to where it came from. He desperately tries to unsummon it, casting a powerful binding spell. Magical chains burst out and wrap around the chimera, trying to force it to submit. But the legendary beast just growls, its glowing eyes filled with pure disdain for such weak magic. Lester's confidence completely shatters when he realizes his spell is failing, big time. With a furious roar, the chimera easily shatters the magical chains. The arrogant noble can only watch in horror as his own ultimate weapon turns against him. All of a sudden, Belmont jumps into action, kicking off a nearby wall with insane speed. He vaults right over the rampaging beast, getting into position for a counterattack. In the blink of an eye, the Demon King snags the chimera, easily overpowering the out-of-control monster. With just one hand, he effortlessly shuts down the rampaging beast's power. He then sends the legendary monster packing, leaving everyone completely shocked. Belmont just stands there calmly in the middle of the wreckage, facing the stunned noble. Lester can only sputter, totally unable to wrap his head around what just happened. The Demon King chews him out for treating such a delicate creature so roughly. The snooty noble is left completely speechless by this weird lecture. With the chimera's shadow looming over him, Belmont makes it clear who's in charge. He promises to free the beast from its miserable forced service. A demonic symbol glows in his eye as he gets ready to shatter the binding spell. He zeroes in on his target, the control core lodged deep inside the monster's throat. He channels his power, preparing to obliterate the device controlling the legendary beast. With a single, precise strike, he unleashes a blast that frees the chimera from its chains. The arrogant noble is just stunned into silence. His entire worldview is shattered by the demon's insane power. But then, a tiny little meow cuts through the shocked silence, grabbing everyone's attention. The terrifying super weapon has turned into an adorable, but very angry, little kitten. Lester is instantly in love, totally confused by the legendary monster's real form. Belmont casually explains that this monster is pretty much just one of his old pets from back home. He scoops up the little guy and declares that its original, cuddly form is obviously the best one. Now that it's free, the Demon King decides to adopt the beast, giving it a pretty unique new name. But Lester refuses to be shown up, vowing that his rivalry for Alice's heart has only just begun. Belmont schools the noble, telling him that women aren't some prize to be won in a fight, and then he whips out his dating guide. He smugly declares the importance of doing your homework, while the clueless noble mistakes the racy novel for some kind of powerful spellbook. Belmont coolly claims he's been poring over its profound teachings lately. He then calls on his new pet to help him with a little show and tell, A flash of red energy suddenly envelops the tiny creature, kicking off a dramatic transformation. The kitten morphs into a gorgeous catgirl, leaving everyone completely stunned. Meanwhile, Lehi is cleaning Belmont's room, just hoping his first day is going smoothly. That's when she stumbles across a second book, one that looks even more suggestive. But a quick peek inside reveals it's just the wholesome, all-ages version of the book. Back in the classroom, Belmont announces it's time for an extracurricular lesson, holding up his advanced textbook. The book's mature rating proves this is some seriously advanced stuff. Elsewhere, Alice is dragging Anne along on a mission, who can't help but tease her about her real motives. Anne jokingly threatens to snatch the handsome demon boy for herself, which really gets under Alice's skin. The flustered heir to the hero's legacy insists she just wants to thank him, but claims she can't go by herself. Anne immediately calls her out as a classic tsundere, seeing right through her flimsy excuses. They finally make it to Belmont's classroom, ready to confront the young demon, but the sight that greets Alice leaves her blushing and totally speechless. Belmont is in the middle of a very hands-on demonstration for a captivated, yet stone-faced audience. Anne is completely impressed by his sheer nerve, while Alice is just plain horrified. Lester, on the other hand, is a total convert, vowing to follow his new big bro, Belmont, for the rest of his life. Spotting the newcomers, Belmont innocently asks if Alice is there for his special lesson too. A furious Alice immediately denies it, yelling at the pervert for his scandalous display. His first day ends with a 100% approval rating from the guys and a disastrous 1000% rating with the girls. The next day, Belmont strolls into class, figuring everyone's already heard about yesterday's little incident. Inside, Lester has already laid down a new law. Everyone must greet their big bro. The classroom door swings open, and the class eagerly awaits the arrival of their new leader. As Belmont steps inside, the entire room of buff dudes shouts a heartfelt, "Good morning, big bro." But the Demon King just walks right past his new fan club without even a sideways glance, completely absorbed in his book. Lester and his crew can only stare in disbelief as their grand welcome is totally ignored. The noble heir and his new followers are left utterly speechless by the cold shoulder. His confused lackeys demand an explanation, but Lester is already lost in thought. He decides their leader's silence wasn't a snub, but a challenge to earn his respect. Lester concludes that their pathetic greetings were simply unworthy of his new big bro. The following day, he tries a royal greeting, kneeling in a full suit of armor to prove his loyalty. Another student attempts a crisp military salute, but Belmont doesn't even bat an eye. Even a deep, gangster-style bow fails to get any reaction from the preoccupied Demon King. Later in the cafeteria, Lester feels completely dejected, since every single one of his grand gestures has been ignored. He starts to spiral, overthinking every last detail of his failed greetings. Meanwhile, Belmont is just calmly enjoying his lunch, totally oblivious to the noble's existential crisis. Belmont's only concern is his desperate need to find a cultivation partner. He's bummed that Alice is giving him the cold shoulder, since she's his only female acquaintance at the entire academy. Meanwhile, somewhere else, the hero's heir is practically boiling over, mangling her spoon in a fit of pure rage. Surrounded by a mountain of plates, she's stress-eating, absolutely furious that Belmont even exists. But just then, a hand smacks down hard on Belmont's table, completely shattering his concentration. It's Anne, the cat girl, who calls out to the Demon King with a nickname that's a little too familiar. He knows her immediately from that, let's call it, special private lesson. She cuts right to the chase, skipping the small talk and making him a very forward offer. Leaning in real close, she whispers the one secret he was sure was totally safe. The Demon King is completely blindsided, wondering how this total stranger knows about his forbidden magic. Nearby, Lester literally falls out of his chair, shocked to see Anne getting all chummy with his new idol. He tries to make sense of it, figuring she must just be blown away by Belmont's incredible wisdom. Playing it cool, the Demon King agrees to her proposal, ready to follow her lead. But all the way across the cafeteria, a ceramic bowl cracks under the pressure of a very angry grip. Alice shoots up from her seat, her jealousy practically radiating for everyone to see. She furiously demands to know what in the world Anne plans to do with Belmont in broad daylight. Anne just flashes a smug little smirk, revealing she was just asking him about the student union and even invites Alice to tag along. The hero's heir is left totally dumbfounded, her jealous outburst now looking completely ridiculous. Belmont glances over, questioning Alice's sudden and overly dramatic entrance. Caught in her own trap of jealousy, all Alice can do is grind her teeth in silent rage. A flustered Alice just snaps that she doesn't need their pity and storms off in a huff. Belmont and Anne simply carry on, leaving the fuming hero's heir in their dust. But lurking in the shadows, a determined Lester watches his new role model walk off, vowing to follow his big bro everywhere to learn his profound secrets to success. Once they're alone, Belmont cuts right to the chase, demanding to know what Anne really wants from him. The catgirl just smirks again, admitting she has a very particular objective in mind for our Demon King. She brazenly suggests they practice the legendary cultivation of yin and yang together. The Demon King is floored, demanding to know how she found out about his secret art. and nonchalantly explains that the magic was actually invented by the hero Arya, specifically to seal the original Demon King. Belmont is absolutely mortified, realizing the legendary hero created that very personal spell just for him, and continues, pointing out that demons are supposed to be powerless here, yet he's already shown off some incredible strength. She correctly deduces that his power must be linked to that legendary yin and yang technique. The Demon King starts to panic, realizing that if she spills the beans, he's totally screwed. But then, the cat girl reveals there's a very specific requirement for using the technique. Belmont is left totally in the dark, having no idea what she's getting at, and that's when she drops a massive bombshell. The user has to be a complete virgin, something an incubus could never, ever be. With that, N accuses him of using a totally different and much cruder power-siphoning technique on that exhausted girl, Alice. The Demon King internally breathes a massive sigh of relief, grateful that his incredibly embarrassing secret is still under wraps. He quickly gets his cool back, asking why she'd even bring up the forbidden art in the first place. With a sly grin, N hints that she, on the other hand, has already prepared herself for the intimate ritual. Her fingertips start glowing with golden energy, revealing her true deadly intentions. With a maniacal grin, N lunges forward, her claws aimed right at the Demon King. But Belmont doesn't even flinch, watching this sudden betrayal with an air of cold, detached indifference. Out of nowhere, Lester bolts from the shadows, yelling a frantic warning to his hero. For a split second, the eyes of the assailant, the victim, and the would-be savior lock in a tense standoff. Without a second thought, the loyal nobleman dives in front of Belmont, taking the full brunt of the deadly attack. Lester, completely ignoring his own safety, desperately checks to see if his idol is okay. Belmont just waves off his concern, far more curious about why he was attacked. N scoffs, clearly annoyed. She gripes that her fun was ruined by the meddling. With a smirk, she tells the Demon King he got lucky this time. N continues to mock him, wondering aloud just how long a puny little incubus can last in this academy. And with one last agile leap, the mysterious catgirl disappears into the cityscape. At the same time, deep within a shadowy chamber, the clandestine council watches the events at the academy unfold. One member seethes, complaining that the brat from the demonic clan is fitting in way too easily. Another shadowy figure chimes in, blaming a certain influential relative for the demon's progress. A member with glowing eyes cuts them off, tired of their vague and annoying riddles. The first member just chuckles, admitting he had that coming. A crystal ball displays the scene from the cafeteria, revealing Belmont's rapidly growing influence among the students. Another member sarcastically thanks someone named Alice for allowing a demon into their midst, but the glowing-eyed figure furiously slams their fist on the table, roaring at them to show some respect. But another shadowy figure brushes off the worry, stepping forward to reveal he is the council president. The student council president, Adonis Roseth, coolly states that he has already dispatched someone to take care of the situation. Elsewhere, Belmont mulls over his mission. To restore his powers, he needs to cultivate yin and yang energy with a female partner. A map of the academy grounds reveals a major problem. The boys' and girls' dorms are on completely opposite sides. He groans at the lack of opportunities. His gaze drifts over a few potential candidates. Then it hits him. The upcoming mixed gender combat training is his one and only golden opportunity. Unfortunately, Lester and his new fan club have formed a human wall around him, swearing to keep any and all distractions away from their big bro. The mighty Demon King is practically being suffocated by his overenthusiastic new bodyguards. He orders them to back off, but Lester insists that he's surrounded by danger. The noble heir points a shaky finger towards N, absolutely certain the catgirl is lying in wait to ambush his hero. From a distance, N just watches, a smug look locked on the Demon King. Belmont says nothing, totally unbothered by the so-called threat. He finally grabs Lester by the collar, telling him to give him some space so he can actually breathe. But the noble heir completely misinterprets the gesture, thinking he's just been officially promoted to #1 subordinate. Lester pledges his eternal loyalty, even trying to copy his big bro's intimidating grin. But their little moment is cut short when a new challenger grabs Belmont's shoulder. A red-haired student named Brian starts running his mouth, calling him an arrogant demon brat. Lester's face goes pale with panic as he immediately recognizes the infamous upperclassman. Brian sneers that he just had to see the shameless demon who weaseled his way into the academy. Belmont calmly notes that if Brian is a senior in their class, it must mean he failed last year's exams. Absolutely livid at the insult, Brian throws a magically charged fist straight at Belmont's face. Lester recognizes the enchantment, realizing the upperclassman's power is easily on the level of a professional hero. The devoted underling screams for his big bro to dodge the incoming blow, but all Brian does is smirk, thinking his first punch would be more than enough to teach the demon a lesson. But his smug look instantly morphs into one of pure, unadulterated shock. Belmont effortlessly plucks the magically charged fist out of the air, stopping the attack dead in its tracks. A new catgirl suddenly materializes, perched casually on the upperclassman's shoulder, and immediately starts scolding the hot-headed senior, asking if it's physically possible for him to go one day without stirring up trouble. Another student chimes in, telling them to keep it down before class officially starts. Brian just smirks, fascinated by the Demon Kid's surprising show of force. Lester confirms the rumors are spot on, leaving Belmont completely baffled. The loyal noble then reveals that his scheme to take out his big bro is already in the works. He explains that Brian is a violent dude who was held back a year, with strength that could rival a professional hero. Lester figures that some powerful player must be pulling the strings behind the scenes to involve a descendant of a hero. An instructor announces the start of combat training, a hunt for demonic puppets in the forest. Right on cue, glowing green portals appear, ready to whisk the students away to the training grounds. The rules are simple. Teams of 2 get teleported to random locations and have to hunt for 4 hours. Lester is absolutely stoked about the team-up rule, seeing it as the perfect chance to protect his beloved big bro. But when he turns around to partner up, his big bro has already vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, the hot-headed senior and his catgirl partner step through their portal. Brian warns his partner to stay out of his way, claiming that Belmont is his personal prey. The unimpressed catgirl just mutters to herself about how loud he is. As they're getting ready to go through the portal, Brian yells for her to hurry up, but Belmont suddenly crashes their party, flying straight through their portal. He grabs the catgirl by the wrist, deciding on the spot that she's coming with him. The portal sucks them in, leaving a stunned and partnerless Brian standing there. Belmont and his newly acquired partner are sent plummeting toward the training grounds. They drop from an insane height, disappearing into the vast, dense forest canopy below. After a pretty rough landing, the annoyed catgirl demands to know what his problem is. Belmont just plays it cool, claiming he just wanted to talk in private as he scrambles for a handhold. His crash landing leaves him in a very compromising position with his new partner. The Demon King immediately launches into a clinical analysis of her beastman physiology. She just smirks, threatening to tell Alice all about his up-close and personal research, but her playful tone evaporates as golden claws spring from her fingertips. The catgirl lunges, revealing he's just stumbled right into her deadly trap. Belmont's eyes narrow, completely unfazed by the sudden ambush. A massive stone golem erupts from the earth, activated by her trap, but she easily shatters the monster herself, looking disappointed by its pathetic strength. As he gets to his feet, Belmont starts an impromptu lecture on golem mechanics. The catgirl turns around, completely baffled by his bizarre pop quiz. He continues his little lecture, explaining that destroying the golem's body without taking out its core is completely useless. As if on cue, the shattered golem begins to reform around the now not-so-smug catgirl. Her confident expression completely vanishes, shocked that her own trap has been turned against her. Before she can react, one of the massive stone monsters snatches her up. Trapped in its grip, she fumes, angry at being caught off guard and unable to break free. Belmont calmly explains that finding the core requires exceptional magic sensing abilities, and that's exactly why he needs a partner. The captured catgirl struggles, totally annoyed that he's roping her into this. She snaps that she's practically out of mana, making his whole plan sound like a total joke. But the Demon King just grabs her anyway, declaring that his eyes are more than enough to see right through them. A golden sigil flares to life in his eye as he unleashes his legendary Mystic Eyes. His Mystic Eyes immediately lock onto the golem's weakness, a core hidden right in its armpit. With one devastating punch, he completely shatters the golem's massive stone arm. Without a moment's hesitation, he launches himself at the next target. The second golem looms over him, but the Demon King is already poised to strike. His special sight pinpoints the next core, conveniently located right at its waist. A single swift kick is all it takes to obliterate the second monster and its core. He sticks the landing perfectly. Surrounded by the rubble of his defeated foes, he stands, revealing his healing magic is finally under his complete control. Just as the catgirl starts to fall, he swoops in and catches her with effortless grace. Completely stunned by his power and precision, she starts to question everything she thought she knew about him. Belmont casually admits his limited mana was almost an issue, his mystic eyes still glowing faintly. The catgirl demands to know why he'd bother saving someone who was sent to take him out. He coolly explains that her assassination attempt was way too obvious to be the real deal. With his mystic eyes, he'd already seen through her entire scheme, but his special sight gave him a far more detailed view than she could have ever expected. He carries his flustered partner, a smug look plastered on his face. But then, the Demon King's composure finally cracks, completely overwhelmed by the unexpected scenery. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the forest, another student is having a much worse day. A furious Brian realizes that Demon Brat completely played him for a fool. Surrounded by the wreckage of defeated golems, the abandoned upperclassman vows to make Belmont pay for this. The catgirl frantically tries to wake the unconscious Demon King after his sudden collapse, but it's too late. His legendary absolute sight is activated, a power unique to his bloodline. This ability allows him to see the very essence of a person, their mana flow and internal structure. A major side effect, however, is that he can no longer recognize faces, and with his mana totally depleted, the powerful ability downgrades into what is essentially simple X-ray vision. The catgirl breathes a sigh of relief as he finally starts to stir from his daze. But his new vision gives him a far more revealing look at his partner than he bargained for. The ancient Demon King is completely overwhelmed, suffering a truly epic nosebleed. His partner is left utterly speechless, completely baffled by his extreme reaction. She scoffs at his incubus title, wondering how he could get so flustered by a little anatomy. Wiping away the evidence, Belmont hastily deactivates his powers, promising to be more careful. But his partner suddenly gets uncomfortably close, her curiosity totally piqued by his bizarre reaction. She introduces herself as Rostana and notes a unique scent coming from him, realizing he's no ordinary incubus. Rostana then asks if he has any idea why everyone is so dead set on kicking him out of the academy. She scoffs at his clueless answer, revealing that a true mastermind has been pulling the strings from the shadows all along. Then, the cat girl drops a bombshell. The person orchestrating his entire downfall is none other than Alice Roseth. The Demon King is left completely stunned, unable to believe his own rival would go to such extreme lengths. Rostana lays out the continent's tragic backstory, where an alliance of different races once united to fight a common enemy. But after the war, the humans snatched up most of the land, which led to widespread discrimination against all the other races. This new world order got the other races brutally kicked to the curb and oppressed. Rostana explains how humans now look down their noses at their former allies, calling them lowly races. She recalls their cruel jabs, claiming the oppressed should just be grateful they're allowed to exist at all. The cat girl points out how this sheer arrogance has been brewing deep resentment among the other races for years. She claims Alice's decision to bring a demon to the academy is the perfect excuse they've been waiting for to launch a new war. Therefore, taking out Belmont is now the human race's #1 priority to prevent total chaos. Rostana questions why he seems so unbothered. The Demon King just calls her whole theory ridiculous. He scoffs, completely unimpressed by her totally predictable, dime-a-dozen conspiracy plot. The Demon King then reveals that he has a very different read on the hero's heir. He knows Alice's true goal is to end racial conflict, and finds it a real shame she's so misunderstood. Belmont then completely flips the script, accusing Rostana of trying to use him to start her own war against the humans. Rostana is completely blindsided, and a single tear rolls down her cheek. She tries to play it cool, brushing off his accusation and suggesting they just wrap up training for the day, but their little chat is cut short when Brian dive-bombs them from above. The furious upperclassman declares that they're not going anywhere, trapping them with his magic. A powerful force slams them straight into the ground, pinning them in place. Belmont instantly figures out their attacker is manipulating gravity itself. Brian just gloats, promising to make this quick as payback for being ditched. But instead of fear, Rostana flashes a very confident, fanged grin. The upperclassman is baffled, mistaking her confidence for madness brought on by fear. She fires right back with a classic comeback, mocking his bravado with a very personal dig. Enraged, Brian roars that her little taunt just sealed her fate. Pinned down by his gravity magic, the two can only watch as the smug upperclassman closes in. But Belmont's sharp eyes catch a glimpse of a hidden item clutched in Rostana's hand. He recognizes the vial in an instant. It's the legendary and extremely dangerous dragon's saliva. Their attacker powers up, vowing to tear them apart piece by piece. With perfect timing, the cat girl kicks their desperate counterplan into motion. She chugs the entire potion in one gulp, preparing for a massive power-up. The ground shatters as she breaks free from the crushing gravity spell. Engulfed in a fiery aura, she rockets into the sky, leaving her captor totally stunned. The potion is transforming her, supercharging her power at the cost of her own life force. Brian smirks, recognizing the magic-boosting serum and admitting her tricks are pretty clever. With a wild grin, Rostana unleashes a devastating blast of fire, pouring every last bit of her borrowed power into the attack. Completely unfazed, the upperclassman instantly throws up a massive force field to defend himself. Her attack slams right into the shield, resulting in a colossal explosion that rocks the whole forest. As the smoke clears, a panting Rostana wonders if her all-or-nothing assault was enough to take him down, but a glowing fist smashes right through the smoke, effortlessly blocking her follow-up strike. Brian easily overpowers the cat girl, grabbing her by the head and putting a stop to her rampage. He reveals his force magic can be layered, getting exponentially stronger every time he used it. Now, with his power totally cranked up, he blasts the exhausted cat girl off her feet with a single, savage hit. The upperclassman stands there, victorious, his face spattered with the grim proof of his total domination. Brian sneers in disgust, pissed that her filth actually got on him. But emerging from the smoke, the Demon King is watching the senior's little victory monologue. Belmont stares down at the empty potion bottle, a dark look creeping onto his face. The senior's cruel taunts have finally gotten under the Demon King's skin. Brian keeps mocking the defeated cat girl, about to play his final ace. A brand new power starts crackling from his hand, signaling a completely different type of magic. He conjures a massive illusion of Alice, using her to mess with Rostana's head. Rostana can only gape in disbelief, whispering the hero's heiress's name. The upperclassman then reveals his true target, vowing to take Alice out after he's finished here. But even on the ground, Rostana roars back, desperately trying to pull his attention away from her friend. Brian laughs at her for dreaming of friendship with humans, calling her nothing but an animal. He then gets ready to end it with his devastating 3-layer punch. But just as he's about to land the final blow, his entire arm gets ripped clean off. The upperclassman can only let out a blood-curdling scream, staring at the stump where his arm used to be. That's when Belmont reveals the potion only brought back a tiny sliver of his real power. Both the attacker and his victim are left completely floored by this insane turn of events. Belmont then lectures the cat girl, declaring that his own ruthless way is the only way to truly settle a conflict. As a demonic mask materializes over his face, he promises a grim end for anyone who gets in his way. A flashback suddenly takes us to Brian's past, starting with the absolute hatred he had for his own father. His dad's fear of other races began after getting completely crushed in the war against the demons. The father dealt with his trauma by beating his own twisted fears into his children through grueling, brutal training. He would tear into a young Brian for his unstable powers, calling him a worthless piece of garbage. His father's lessons were fueled by pure paranoia, constantly asking if his sons wanted to get wiped out by the other clans. He screamed at them to never forget the overwhelming power of the demonic clan above all others. From that day forward, Brian swore he would never sink to the level of his pathetic, cowardly old man. Snapping back to the present, the upperclassman vows that no one from another clan will ever surpass him. Rostana stares in utter shock, wondering if this terrifying monster is the same little incubus she knew. The catgirl flinches as the fully transformed Demon King locks his terrifying gaze on her, but Brian just laughs it off, mocking Belmont for getting cocky after one lucky sneak attack. The Demon King completely ignores him, instead demanding that he first apologize to Rostana for disrespecting her clan. Brian scoffs at the idea, refusing to apologize to someone he sees as trash. The Demon King coolly retorts that it's because Brian is the real trash. Belmont clarifies that he was just trying to give the senior a more dignified end. Enraged, Brian unleashes his power, ready to show this demon what true strength is all about. Rostana recognizes his advanced spell stacking, a technique that's way beyond a first-year